In Asia, do you think, Alicia, is it fair to say that India is actually least impacted from Trump tariffs as compared to others?
Yes, I do agree. And the reason is simple. First, India is big enough to offer a market to the US, which is not yet too dependent. I mean, I know you have around 100 billion in trade deficit with China, but I think you are still at the infancy compared to Southeast Asia, to ASEAN countries in your dependence from China. Any other Asian country is more dependent than India. If you look at Indonesia, if you look at Thailand, Vietnam, by all means, even Malaysia. So in that regard, India is kind of the only hope to have a supply chain that is not too dependent on China, to be linked to the US. So this is why I think you will be affected the least. Of course, and I finish here, this is based on the fact that the US economy will not enter recession. If the US economy enters a recession or even stagflation with high inflation, the whole world will suffer, India including, because the world will enter, a very recessionary mode. And that is bad for everybody. But I'm talking about tariffs here. Imagining a US economy that still holds up in line with the forecast of the latest forecast by the Fed, which is around 1.7% growth. But remember that these forecasts were done before Liberation Day. So we don't know whether the US economy will hold up really and avoid a recession. We are not sure yet.
How do you see the trade negotiations going on from here? Do you think any progress can be made soon?
I think there is progress. I was in Delhi for the Resina dialogue. Everybody was there, Bill Gates was there, all of the companies, OpenAI, Google, you name it. They all want to be in India, as you surely know, but they need market access, full market access, which I think is what the US is negotiating with the Indian government, because balanced trade is not going to happen soon. India can import more, possibly military equipment. They already did F-35 when Modi was in Washington, Prime Minister Modi, but I don't think it is feasible to expect a fully balanced trade. And India is not the worst case. As I said, Vietnam has, for its size, the largest trade surplus. So for Vietnam, the one and only way is market access. For Vietnam, that basically means privatization of banks so that US financial companies can buy stakes in Vietnamese banks, telecom, tech companies entering Vietnam, all of that. So it is a major change for some countries to give that market access. I don't think China is ready to offer that market access, but you never know. And I don't think the US is putting China at the top of the negotiation list. I think India is at the top of the negotiation list at this moment.
Do you think if we are able to find some sort of a trade pact right now, we will be able to resolve this uncertainty probably sooner rather than later?
Yes, I think so. For the very simple reason that Trump needs to give some good news to the market. Yeah, I mean, the market is reading his actions really negatively. I think the most likely exemptions from tariffs, other than Canada and Mexico, after a negotiation with USMCA for the renewal of USMCA, is India, followed by the UK and Europe, the European Union. These are the most likely negotiations.
Any idea the kind of impact that we are looking at? Any back of the envelope calculations that you can help us with?
So let me start with China. We have lowered China's growth from 5 to 4.2%, but this includes a much bigger stimulus than has been announced so far. Without stimulus, China's growth could be much lower. For India, I have to say, as you know, India has been decelerating in the second half of 2024. This year should be slightly better because there should be a rebound in the second half, and the RBI is cutting rates. So if the negotiations go fast, maybe the impact will be quite limited. But it is yet to be seen whether the BIT, the Bilateral Investment Agreement, will be signed. So in other words, we need to wait. For Vietnam, it's massive. Growth will be down nearly half to 3%. So yeah, 2 percentage points lower growth is quite a lot.
Do you think that the US economy has entered a recession or will enter one?
I think Trump will negotiate with many countries before that happens. So I think there will be some good news from the US lowering some tariffs, and probably India will be one. I think growth will be lower, but maybe they manage to avoid the recession. I think it's too early to call a recession, to be frank.
How long do you think before both sides come on the table and start some sort of negotiations to really end these tariff questions right now?
There will be many defaults. Export companies, unless they receive government subsidies. So you already see many subsidies everywhere. Europe, Taiwan is subsidizing export companies. So it's a little bit like COVID, if I may, with a lot of government expenditure to avoid the impacts of the trade war. And this will put public debt at a much higher level in many countries. The frontier markets and smaller countries will suffer a lot. So this is a problem for the poorer countries, which cannot afford subsidies.
And finally, Alicia, do you think there's any mechanism that countries can try and build in to cushion or at least minimize some of the impact from the uncertainty?
Yes, they can do something. And this is important for India because there's a long way to go, which is to liberalize trade with others. Yeah. India could sign the pending free trade agreement with the European Union, with the UK, just open other markets quickly. That's what one should do, because the effective tariff with the world could be even lower, even if the US tariff is higher, you see. So actually, the European Union is India's largest trading partner on the export side. Sometimes the US, sometimes the European Union, but it's very similar to the US. So by lowering those tariffs, you already have a big gain. So I think that the way out is liberalize with other markets.
All right, Alicia, thank you so much for speaking to me on India Global today.